Good evening and welcome back to Destructor Dow's Wellness Wednesday. We are so glad to have you with us. I'm Zawadi, your host for the evening. Wellness Wednesdays is where we bridge mental and financial well being. In last week's episode, our guest spoke on the topic of stress, survival strategies, and unhealed trauma, how they live in our nervous systems, quietly shaping the way we think, feel, and act, including how we relate to money and prosperity. In tonight's conversation, we shift from awareness to practice. Our guest will share how they regulated their nervous systems and rewired old patterns through neuroplasticity. Based on the brain and body's natural ability to learn new, healthier responses over time, they are less and less stuck with the reactions they originally developed to survive. With safety and repetition, new pathways are possible. A little about our guest. Cassandra Medley was honored with the Helen Merrill Playwriting Award in 2023. Her plays have been widely produced in Johannesburg, Toronto, and across the United States. In 22, Cassandra wrote the libretto for the Fannie Lil Hamer opera. She has also won an Audelco August Wilson Playwriting Award and has been featured on NPR's Science Friday. She's also a retired professor of playwriting at Sarah Lawrence College and has taught at NYU and Columbia University. And for those of you One Life to Live fans, she was a staff writer at one time. Noe is a writer and storyteller, currently publishing Abuela Mija, a Substack born from her experiences learning how to belong in Mexico. Through an Imagine Abuela, she's developed a conversation with in AI. She explores culture, language, and emotional regulation with humor and care. Her work treats technology as a reflective medium shaped by lived experiences and discernment. And she writes at the intersection of story, place, and ethics with a focus on cultural listening. As always, Dr. Eve will lead this discussion. And before I turn you over, remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, invite your friends, and please leave constructive comments. So, Dr. Eve, take it away.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, welcome back, everyone. It is a pleasure being here. And if you joined us last week, you'll remember that we spent time exploring the concept that the past doesn't just live in our memories, right? It lives in our bodies. So, today we're shifting from recognizing that to integrating this information because knowledge without regulating our nervous system often causes us to repeat the same outcomes. So, if we're feeling stuck, even though we're doing all the right things, let's try to understand the whys. And then we're going to share some steps that we've done that has helped us to make some shifts, right? So many people we know are doing the right things, right? We're learning, budgeting, investing, but still feel blocked. And that's a common theme that we hear within our community and many communities, but that doesn't mean the tools are wrong. Sometimes it just means that the body hasn't caught up with the fact that it's safe to use these tools now. Because the reality is, there are things that could have happened in our past, although unconscious, right? We don't think about it. It's still kind of living within us. That's what I mean by our nervous system. So before we talk about how to rewire patterns, I want to briefly name just where many of these patterns actually come from, right? Without going deep into labels or diagnoses. So let's try to look at a quick slide that I have here. So trauma can be stored in the nervous system, right? And that's why healing from the inside out is more than a budget fix. And we understand that. There's 6 common fear barriers that occur. We all understand generational trauma and vicarious trauma, which is when we witness things. But there's that scarcity script, right? That's very relevant. Many are familiar with. There's never enough. And what does that pattern look like? Overworking or hoarding. Sometimes it's chronic anxiety. Then there's the survival guilt loop, right? If I rise, I leave others behind. How many can relate to that, right? That then we unconsciously start self sabotaging or shrinking our success or not stepping up, even though we know we're leaders in the game. There's the inherited silence. We don't talk about money or question authority. So what patterns develop from that? Avoidance, secrecy, confusion. There's a hyper independence trap, right? I have to do this alone, right? It's in that which leads to burnout or distrust. How many of us sometimes are afraid to ask for help, and maybe we didn't have help growing up. Maybe we were the ones that were taking the lead and we're not used to being able to follow, right? Or be led. So these are things that sometimes come up in so many different ways. There's also the nervous system freeze, that belief that money feels overwhelming, and trying to get, or generate this wealth is overwhelming. It's beyond me, it's beyond my skills. I'm not good with math. How many of us have sung that tune, right? Which then leads to patterns like procrastination or avoidance. Then there's the worthiness wound, right? It's this belief that I don't deserve more. Despite how much you have achieved, your resilience, despite how much you're trying to change and have made changes in your life, there's like this little voice inside, right? That says, mm-mm. So what do? We start either undercharging or overgiving. Before we know it, every time there's a family member, a close friend that needs some help financially, there you are. But yet you never ask when you're in a bind, right? And sometimes, we start shaming ourselves for doing that. And sometimes we're just always overcommitting and doing other projects, leaving ourselves so exhausted that we can't even look at ways to address our mental well-being, our physical well-being, and especially our financial well-being. So these are the common ways that we notice it shows up. And I wonder for you, what does that look like? And so think about it. If you can write it, make notes of it, make notes of it so that we could talk about it during our Q&A. Now, how it shows up, it's a little different, right? Those are some of the sources for feeling stuck. When money trauma lives in our body because of past experiences, things that we've witnessed, it often shows up in ways that seem irrational. But many in the mental health field don't call that irrational. We refer to it as protective patterns of behavior. And so some people may avoid looking at numbers or talking about money, right? Some may overspend or rush decisions to feel that relief. Some may need that dopamine to feel like, okay, I exist, I'm alive, I'm here, okay. Some hold on to money so tightly that they struggle to spend or they leave it in their savings account and never let it grow. Others might feel this deep shame or anxiety or self sabotage right at the moment that it's growing. And yet we don't know the whys, right? Because we don't give ourselves enough time to breathe, scan our bodies, and say, what's going on? Where is this coming from? And folks, that's not character flaws. No, that's our nervous system. That's our nervous system's survival response. That's what we call our flight, fight, freeze, and even fawn, right? Trying to keep us safe based on information from the past. That's why discipline alone doesn't work sometimes, and why awareness without regulation keeps us stuck. So here's a simple biology to that. Your nervous system's job is to detect safety or danger, right? It decides before logic gets involved. So at some point, if your life, um, or if your life, past life, right, correlated money with danger or loss or punishment, what happens? The body learns to stay alert or stay small or stay ready. So here's the good thing. Research has shown that patterns like these are impermanent, right? The brain and the nervous system can form new pathways, and that's called neuroplasticity. So we don't change patterns by pushing harder. No, we change them by teaching the body it's safe. It's safe to choose differently, and that's step by step. And that's why tonight, each one of us will share 2 or 3 ways or steps that we had to take so that we can rewire our patterns, those patterns that no longer served us. And I'm going to start with let's bring up Cass to the stage because Cass had shared some valuable information there. Um, Cass,
Hi.
here we go. And I'm going to also bring up Noy on the sidelines here. Um, Cass, last week you shared some really important information about yourself, and we appreciate your transparency, right?
Well,
For folks who wasn't here in the last episode, you know, she shared how she focused on teaching her body that taking small financial risk won't lead to punishment because she had equated growing up exactly that money leads to punishment in one way or the other. So,
yes,
Cass,
money led to punishment, and the sense that I was incompetent and always failing. Fear, just basic fear. So, as Dr. Eve has mentioned, has talked about, I realize that my body still has to catch up. My body still has every day, every morning, my body has to catch up to the advancements that I've made in my financial life. And I establish that every morning I wake up, I have to do a gratitude meditation. I have to do deep breathing. I have to do Tai Chi. When I open my computer, I have to continue to do the deep breathing. I have to say to myself, it's safe. It's safe. You can take the risk. You can survive. That's every single morning. And when I'm literally going to the platforms, whatever the different trading platforms that we use, again, I have to recount. I have to give myself this steady encouragement constantly. My meditations help me step by step by step, looking through the charts, making the decisions where I'm going to invest that day, waiting with alerts step by step, taking small money actions, micro investing, and noticing I'm still safe. I can still do this. Affirming my confidence, my competence as well. Breathing while I'm performing my money actions, while I'm entering and exiting my decisions, and while I'm watching my investments grow. So knowing that I just to accept that the old fear, the old grip, the old you're going to fail, you're going to ruin yourself. You're going to ruin your life, your economy. These are the old patterns. And to work with them with a real compassion. And one of the very important things in my daily financial meditation is gratitude because I have to acknowledge how far I have come. And that can mean looking back over past records. That can mean constantly writing to myself, journaling to myself, knowing there was definitely a time in my life I'd never, what is stock? I didn't know what that was and how far I've come. And with gratitude, when my body relaxes, when I thank myself for having survived, for coming through the difficulties, the pain, my heart, the same heart that's beating inside me now, is the same heart that survived all kinds of financial crises, including how I learned that money was dangerous when I grew up. So
mm,
that gratitude is a key to my daily breathing Tai Chi finance practice. Thank you, Dr. E.
Wow. Wow. So to recap, Cass, what I'm hearing you say is you were taking safety statements, you know, y- you were making safety statements, and it seems like you've journaled quite a few of them, so during all of your small money actions. What I also hear is that those micro risks, you were making small investments, and giving yourself permission to do that. When you were saying you were taking these classes, you were pausing to notice, hey, I acted and I'm still safe. So thank you for sharing that, because that's huge. That's huge. You know, we're Noe. We're going to bring Noe on stage now. Thank you, Cass. Noe, you shared last week with us something very important. It's you wanted to rewire a behavior that normally isn't labeled out there. Like I said before, we talk about behaviors like compulsion and compulsive spending and fear and hoarding, but deservingness. You wanted to rewire deservingness, because and that's because you realize that it's the root of your compulsive behavior. I thought that was very profound. And so I would like you to share more of that.
Thank you, Dr. Eve. What I've learned is that sometimes what looks like doubt is actually my nervous system trying to protect me. I say I want money, I say I want abundance, but underneath, there's a system still running an old program. Until I prove I'm worthy, I can't really have it. This isn't about discipline, it's about deservingness. And that's what's at the root of my compulsive behavior. And that's what I'm rewiring. So here's what I've uncovered through my own practice. I used to think I needed to get better with money before I could actually have it. More mastery, more readiness. But what was really happening was that I had internalized this deep, unspoken belief. I must prove I deserve money before I can have it. If I don't master it, I'll lose it. And that will confirm I was never safe to begin with. This is what I now understand as lack, moralized lack. It's not just a belief about money, it's a belief about me, my worth, my safety, my readiness. And it played out in so many ways. I built AI tools hoping they'd make me passive income, but secretly, I was using productivity to earn permission to receive. I entered programs to fix my money identity, but underneath that, I was still proving. I even used astrology as a scapegoat. It justified why nothing was working. My Saturn's in opposition, so I must be here to struggle in this lifetime. Maybe I just don't deserve ease this time around. These aren't conscious lies, they're just old wiring. So instead of blaming myself for not receiving, I've started practicing something different. My new belief is money doesn't require mastery, it requires intimacy. I am I am a safe home for wealth now, not later. This shift isn't happening overnight, but it started when I got honest, not just with my bank account, but with my nervous system. So here's the three-part practice I've been using to rewire the deservingness loop. The first part is I exercise the false ally. This part is about naming the pattern for what it is. Because belief that if I distrust myself with money, I'll avoid messing it up. Now I say out loud or I write down, I release the belief that my unworthiness protects me. I no longer trade power for perceived safety. Even if I don't fully believe it yet, just saying it shifts the field. The second part is I recalibrate the nervous system to receiving. And this is where I stop auditioning for wealth and start preparing to hold it. The prompt I use regularly is if I trusted my body to hold money today, I would stop and then I fell in the blank. One day it might be I'd stop signing up for trainings I don't actually want. Or another day it might be I'd stop second guessing every decision I make. Whatever it is, I just name it. The clarity is what builds capacity. And for me, I've replaced those compulsive fix it actions with something new. I've turned to ritual to recenter myself. So the third part is rebuilding the money to body bond. And in this piece, I practice every day before I make financial decisions, before checking accounts, before planning anything. It's a 3-minute ritual to remind myself that money is safe with me and I am safe with money. So here's what it looks like. I sit in stillness for a few minutes and I place one hand on my heart. I say aloud, I allow money to love me today. And I notice what that stirs in my body and I breathe. And then I ask my body, where does money not feel safe with me right now? I don't fix anything, I just witness. And I end with this statement, I am already a safe home for money. That's all I do. I just reconnect with myself and I see what's happening within me internally. So I'm not rewiring a habit, I'm restoring trust with myself. The old story said, I'm not ready. The new one says, I'm already worthy. And I still make strategic moves, but now I make them from coherence, not compulsion. And I still use AI, but now I use it as a tool to help me practice receiving with clarity. This isn't about control, it's about building a real bond with money, one I can actually live inside. And that's it. That's my practice. Thank you for allowing me to share it with you. Dr. Eve, please share what patterns you're rewiring.
Well, before I share my patterns, I just have to say that was powerful. That was powerful. I mean, to be able to name and release that false, ally is like you will to release that belief of unworthiness, and that unworthiness protects you, right? That's deep. And I hope that the folks that are listening can really hear the different ways that money stressors can actually live in our bodies. And we don't have these conversations often, not at this level. You also talked about recalibrating your nervous system to receiving. And wow. And to close it up, rebuilding trust, rebuilding trust. And what does that look like? I love the way you renamed it. And I think that we need to have this discussion some more, and we'll probably be bringing you folks back, you ladies back, so we can dive even deeper in this discussion because it's eye-opening. So for me, thank you, Noi. For me, what does that look like? Oof. So in the last episode, I talked about silence, and for me, silence felt safer than asking questions, and then I had to ask myself, where did I get that from? Right. So my old belief was that authority knows best. So you don't defy authority, and my new belief now is that I'm an architect and I will stay an architect, and that didn't happen, overnight. That process happened, over the last 5 years, even, when I started understanding how my own nervous system was reacting to money and my relationship to money. Right. And for those who wasn't here last week, I had mentioned how I had witnessed this vicarious trauma, witnessing my parents have a very volatile fight over money, and so as a young kid at 7 years old, my first image of money is, ooh, that's a horrible thing. Look what happens with money, right? And that gets stored. And I also learned not to raise questions about money. It's like, no, you don't talk about money. You don't question it in our households or in our community. So with that notion, for me to rewire that, I had to little by little realize I needed agency rehearsal. So agency rehearsal looked like asking one question at a time. If I'm trying to negotiate a salary, a contract, or if I'm speaking with my financial advisor, and believe me, I've had quite a few, and I'm very fortunate to have a great financial advisor now. But even with the ones that I've had prior, that hesitation to question their authority, as if, I can't learn or do better. That took some time, but one question at a time started rewiring or changing that pattern, because once I asked a question, I realized I started substituting fear for relief and acknowledgement that, yeah, that's right, I have a voice, and we all have a voice. And also making one money decision without outsourcing power, right? We're making one money decision, even if it's quarterly, without having to go to someone and say, make the decision for me. So that for me was empowerment. Learning how to budget, and be able to focus on my well-being and financial well-being. That also took some time, because we didn't talk about that growing up. And we didn't see our close family members or community members, building generational wealth. It was more like hoarding, because we didn't know what was going to happen with our next dollar, or if it would come, or we would overspend it because we needed that adrenaline and that dopamine to make us feel good, because we have so many money issues going on that what would lift us is the very same thing that would also get us into more stress, the spending. So here we are scanning our systems, and that's what Noy and Cass was talking about, right? We're scanning our nervous system to say, okay, what's really happening? What's really behind this behavior? It's no longer that it's more than just a mindset. It's biological. What is my biology saying? So we could come from a different place, and not of shame, not of criticism, but a place of agency. So, in short, my body learned I could speak and remain safe. So I wonder what it's like for you folks, and what can make you feel safe, what ruffles your feathers. This conversation, even though we've been on for just 20 minutes together talking about these things, it may actually ruffle some of your feathers. So what I would like to do is, the three of us have shared, breathing is always one of those important elements, one of our most important practices. That's how we self-regulate, right? So why don't we practice it together? If we could take a moment, and before we have our Q&A, and I hope you have your questions ready, because we would love to hear your reflections. Let's try to breathe for a moment, because we want to help our bodies integrate what the mind has been hearing for the last 20 minutes. So I'm going to see if I could get some music going in the background. You're familiar with this tune if you listen to our YouTube channels. So let's just start. You're welcome to close your eyes or soften your gaze. Place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. Now let's begin by noticing our breath, and no need to change it yet, just notice it. And let's have that nervous system sound. Now, I'm going to ask that you inhale gently through your nose and take a second short sip of air at the top of that breath, and exhale slowly through the mouth. Let's do that together one more time. Let's do that again. Just inhale, small sip, and a long, slow exhale. This tells the nervous system the danger has passed. I'm safe. As you breathe normally, silently repeat, I have agency. I am safe. There is nothing I need to fix in this moment. I just need to be and acknowledge where I am. Now, notice where money usually lives in your body. Notice during this discussion or even during your breath if there was some tension, some tightness, some urgency, some numbness, some desire to just run away from this whole discussion and say, for another day. Regroup, ground yourself, and let's anchor one last time. So let's do one final breath in. And slow breath out. And if your eyes are closed, when you're ready, open your eyes. And remember that prosperity doesn't begin with effort, it begins with safety. Okay. So thank you, folks, for joining us in that regulating little exercise there. So I know we're going to be breaking into a Q&A, and we'll be bringing our hosts back in a moment. So let me just recap really quick for a quick 60 seconds for our latecomers. For those who joined late, we explored how money patterns are shaped by lived experiences, right? What we inherited, witnessed, survived, or learned to stay safe. That has been our discussion for these past 2 episodes. And these experiences don't create bad habits. What they create is protective ones. And what we're trying to do is raise awareness so that we can take action. So there are times when I refer to fear and compulsion or silence, not as a mindset problem, as I said before, but as a biological response. What is yours? And can you name it a biological response? And what are you willing to do now that you're aware so that you don't criticize yourself? You can move forward with regulating. So we always say in Disruptor Down, and what's very common here, it is time for us to do our 3 R's. We always reflect, scan our bodies, our emotions, the decisions that we're about to make. We reframe it in a way that serves us, gives us agency, that empowers us. And then we try to figure out, okay, what steps works for me that will regulate? Perhaps out of all of our 3 practices that we shared amongst the 3 of us, there's 1 or 2 things. And maybe there's something that you have been doing that you want to share with the community. And if you do, please put it in the chat, because we're all about learning and sharing. So let's go ahead now and bring up our host to the stage here.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
I will be sure in a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Ladies, that was a great session. Reflecting, reframing, deservability, mindset is basically what all of this is. And if you have to do it every day, then you have to do it every day. But there is a way to change your perceptions about money. There's a way to change how you feel about money. And in all of that, you make yourself stronger. So I'd like to ask one question. What would change if your body believed you were no longer in danger? You can type that in the chat. And I meant to ask this before, or say this before. If any of you watching us feel any sensations in your body, headaches, a little panicky, shortness of breath, I do hope that with that breathing exercise, you are feeling much better. But once again, you can put your reflections to the question in the chat. And let me see. I'm just seeing, in terms of comments, I've asked clients, what is their belief about money? Some folks believe money is evil and need to understand what our core belief is so we can make the shift. Breath work, meditation, yoga. Why? Affirmations, prayer, connecting to myself and my higher self. And that commenter also talked about the meditation that she did this morning regarding money. This was great. Thanks for sharing, Casanova. I miss you both. I would take more risks, is the answer to the question. If your body didn't feel like it was in danger, we have very powerful. I'm already worthy. I am already a safe home for money. And we have some people letting us know that they're definitely going to watch the playback and share it with their friends. Now, they didn't say that, but I added that in. So, just looking at the chat to see if there are any more answers. So, I don't see any. Oh, okay. I don't see any more. So, I'd like to say once again, thank you. We love your comments. And even after this live is over, you can still add your comments. There's more information about our guests in the section underneath our photos and ways to contact them. I see, yes, it's a lifestyle. I notice when I don't force it, it comes easily. I will begin to think of it as foreplay. No rush, baby. Don't tease me, but give it to me consistently and increasing amounts. Wow, that's so spicy.
Oh, Yogisha, I love that comment. I love that comment. And please, if you have any questions, drop the questions. This is your Q&A, folks.
I want to answer that question, Zawadi. What I would
Okay.
do is I would relax a little because that is one thing I have never done around money. And I would just really chill. It comes and it goes. And I would be fine with that because I would know it was coming.
Wow, I like that. I like that. Because money is always coming, isn't it? Whether we realize it or not, it is always coming. And it is free to show up when we invite it, when we're ready for it. All right, get that. Yes, no, and needing to rewatch. Yeah, I need to rewatch too because what both of you said was powerful.
Yes.
So before I go on and on and on, I am going to. All right, I have to say this. Stacey, Yogisha says y'all look so sexy, and I received that.
Uh,
Feels
uh,
go ahead, Joey. Comment wanting to resurface. All right. So, ladies, thank you very much. We are so glad that you took these 2 weeks out to talk to us about money and the feelings around money and your feelings around money and the ways that you have attempted to stem those old patterns. So, we're going to say good night. But before we say good night, I am going to ask you to subscribe, to also hit the notification bell, tell everybody you know, because they need to be here. And we will see you next Wednesday.